Hey guys, today I'm going to teach you how to decorate through a stencil with a stencil over a stencil. It's kind of magic. Stay tuned. Hi, I'm Patty with StudioR12 Stencils. I'm an instructor and I'm the owner of the company. Today I'm going to show you some basics about stenciling. If you've had problems with stenciling in the past, bleed through and things like that, I'm going to show you all those basics, but I'm going to show you this great way that you can decorate your letters through with stencils over stencils. It's going to be a lot of fun. Let's get started. Okay, we're going to go here. We are going to grab a foam brush and we are going to get out some paint. This is acrylic paint and they are in honey bottles, and there will be affiliate links and things like that to Amazon store down below. We carry a lot of supplies on our website, but we don't carry everything, and that is one of them. When you're choosing your colors, we were inspired by a paper plate that we saw in a kid's magazine ad. And so we chose our colors with that paper plate. You can go onto Pinterest and you can choose palettes anywhere. Palettes are perfectly legal to borrow. You could be inspired by the colors in a shirt, colors that you see in your house, things like that. I learned that in my house, I actually use a gold, a burgundy, and a green all the time. And so that was super helpful for me to know that I could play around in that color palette. So I'm gonna get this based. To get it smooth, you wanna really work your paint and have not a lot of paint on your brush. Okay, so I'm gonna work in layers instead of working in bulk. Like a lot of people like to glom it on and then just smear it. You wanna work in thinner layers and really work to thin that out, okay? Get it nice and even. You'll notice at the end, so I don't mess up my edges, I sweep off the end, and I like to sweep pulling towards myself. It makes it easier for that motion in my hand. I'm gonna turn it over, and I'll get the other side. So then when we get this all base coated, we'll blow dry it or allow it to dry. And then I'm gonna skip to one that's already dried so we don't have to waste time blow drying. Smooth it out one last time. And I would do probably 2 coats on this. We're gonna plunk this in my water and let it sit there until I'm ready to clean all my brushes. Okay, get that out of there. So now I have my black board base coated. If you can hear that there's a lot of paint texture on there. And I don't always like that. This is a very modern and very sleek kind of looking surface. I mean, the project is kind of modern. I want as much smooth, less lines as possible. So I'm gonna take a sanding block with a really fine grit sandpaper. I'm uncertain what grit this is. We'll post that down below too. And then I'm just going to even that out. Sanding blocks make all the difference. Okay, then I'll wipe off any stuff. Now listen to the difference in the sound. Way different, much smoother. It's gonna allow for just a beautiful transfer on my stencil. Okay, basics on stenciling. You are going to position your stencil. If your stencil is bigger than your board, then what you would do is you're gonna always have 2 pieces of tape, and I'll show you why. Okay, so if your stencil is bigger than your board and you're off the edge or something like that, you'll simply tape through 2 areas, and then that will secure your stencil down there like that. If your stencil's the size of your board, you'll have to move your tape if you're taping through letters or things like that. If your stencil's the size of your board, then you tape in 2 corners. And why 2 corners, you ask? Well, I'm gonna tell you, okay? So watch this. I've taped there, I've secured that. Look at all the movement. It didn't do anything. Now the minute I add that second piece of tape, I am gonna be golden. So it'll wiggle up and down, but it's not gonna wiggle side to side. Now my stencil's secure. That's a big part of painting, is making sure that everything's gonna stay where you want it. Excessive taping isn't needed, but you do need the 2 corners. Okay, and we're gonna take a dome brush. Our dome brush is cut in a dome. That's why it's called a dome. And they're really super dense and they're not floppy. If you're in a regular brush, super floppy kind of fur, even some of the ones that look like they do a good job are really, really floppy. You need a very tight, dense brush to be able to stencil well, okay? And I've seen people use makeup sponges and all those kinds of things. They're foamy and floppy, and they're gonna shove paint straight under your stencil, so getting the right tools is important. All right, we're gonna start with white. If you are doing white over black, which I am, sometimes, oh, this is a really good technique. You shake your paint, right? You always wanna make sure your paint's all shook up. If you bounce it on the table one time, it makes it so it doesn't spit at you when you open your paint. And that is gonna save somebody a sweater or a shirt or a purse or something like that. If you want to cut down on base coats, we can undercoat. I just didn't hit that table, didn't then? Ooh. Let's see what's going on in here. I'll get a different gray. If you want to cut down on base coats, then you can, I'm having a gray dysfunction today. Then you can use a color that's somewhere in between. Like I'm going from the very darkest black to the very lightest white. So if I get something in the middle, wipe off all my paint. I do about 15 swirls. And then what you can do, come over here and we're going to swirl on the paint. And then after I get one or two of these coats, probably just one, it looks like it's doing a good job. Ooh, we're getting really close to that little tree. So we're gonna take our MultiMasker and we are going to lay that over that tree so I don't have any ghosting on my other areas. The MultiMasker is brilliant. Running out of paint, so I will do one more coat on that. So by swirling, I'm not applying really heavy pressure and making the bristles like scoop underneath the stencil. So by swirling lightly, notice that my pressure when I'm doing this is I'm just tippy-toeing on the tip of that brush. I'm not pushing at all. And I have noticed that when I hurry or when I want to get done quickly, I notice that I tend to use more pressure. I pick up more paint. The minute you start picking up a glom of paint is the minute you're going to get bleeding under. So control your paint, swirl it off on your paper towel. You got to use a dry brush and dry paint. Don't add water to anything. And once you've used this for this color, it goes into the water and you need to get another dry brush. Okay? So I've talked my brush pretty dry. Chuck that in there. Now we'll get to the white. Okay. And every now and again, they'll lose a hair, but that's because like they take this, they install it with glue, and sometimes the glue doesn't get to every single hair. Okay, so now we go with the white on top. Okay, just light swirls. The nice thing about stenciling in layers is that you are going to dry quickly. You won't have to spend time with the blow dryer. You're not going to end up with big ridges. It's just a really refreshing way to paint. Seems like it might be more work, but it's actually way less work. Okay, just nice little swirls. And then we repeat that on each one of these pieces. And the only thing that I wanted to share that's weird about this is the color orange. That orange was very, very, like the orange we wanted was not quite this orange. So we took a little bit of this persimmon color and mixed these two together. And that was very helpful to get a kind of a toned orange. So that was kind of a neat little color mixing moment there. So I'm gonna switch to my base coated board. And show you what that looks like all based. Okay, I used my MultiMasker to get from place to place. Anywhere where anything is close, I just held that down and did that. So now what I have going on here, we're going into that really sleek modern look. I've got some edges where I had to do multiple, like yellow, multiple base coats. I've got a couple of stray hairs. If you take that really fine sand paper and you just go over everything, what happens is it knocks down all that stencil-y look and it makes your board not look like you stenciled it, which I think is very, I don't care if I stencil, but I don't want it to look too crafty. I want it to look really polished and fine. And there's just some simple things you can do to do that. Okay, now let's decorate these letters. This is the coolest thing. So we're gonna get this on here, and we are going to, I'm also gonna show you how to operate a round brush. A lot of times stencilers only use stencil brushes and foam brushes, and they don't necessarily always have good round brush skills. I started as like a more fine artist, so I have all the training for that, and I can show you how to do it easily. Okay, so we get this, not decorated, taped on. I'll get it together. And then we're gonna grab some stencils. We've got some neat ways that you can store your stencils. So I used to store my stencils in a big pile, and I never could find anything, and stencils would catch stencils, and it was awful. So I have since learned about this disc ring binder system. So I'm just gonna pull that out of there. And this one was really close to the detail. When I punched it, it got rid of a little bit of my chevron, but I have lots of chevron to use, so I'm okay. I'd rather have it in the book than out. And we're gonna grab out a banding stencil. And so these, you just take these, you punch just like a regular punch, and then you can just put them in books. You just snap right on in there. Okay. And if you look, if you take a stencil and they don't fall apart. It's super neat. I think it's magical. Then also we have the littlest stencils that we do also have holes already pre-cut in them. And so I've just used a scrapbooking little grommet thing and put them together so that these are always handy. Just chuck those in my painting bag and I can have them with me anywhere I'm crafting. Okay, so I'll get rid of these. I'm gonna take chevrons, oops, get my lines back. And this guy, and so we are going to use these to make these straight lines going down. We're gonna use the back end of a paintbrush to make dots. We're gonna use a stencil here, banding stencils to make these straight lines. So let's start with that W. This is just kind of cool. You can use your stencil that you put your lettering on with as a mask. This yellow probably needs a little shaken up. We have a couple of painting stations where we prep for these videos and stuff, so sometimes we don't get all these paints out in this room. All right, get another brush. I'm probably gonna run out of brushes. Somebody can help me out. Maybe. Oh, here's some more. There we go. We use so many brushes. Okay, so we're gonna take our yellow, take our glasses, and we're just gonna go wherever we want some of that detail. Now, I can also take and tape, this stencil's pretty close together, so I can tape that. And then I won't need to worry about it going over from side to side. Okay. So then we'll go get our brush ready. And just apply through the stencil. So now that stencil made a mask, so I'm not making a mess on my background. This saves me from taping everything, like taping all the letters. It saves me from freehanding. Freehanding starts with an F. I didn't know if you know that, but so you wanna make sure that you just keep it friendly for you. Okay, so I get my lines on there. And then just repeating with the lines. I'm not gonna show you how to do every single little pattern. I'm just gonna do the main ones. Let me show you this one right here. Take that's about right. Take our white paint. If you have any questions, you can pop them down in the comments down below. And make sure that you like, share, and use that little bell to subscribe. We have video all the time. Some of it's basics, Some of it's really advanced. We do really cool background techniques, so you want to make sure that you check those out. Okay, and make sure that you are lined up on your stencil, and then you can just go along. And notice I'm stippling here. Swirling is where you go swirl, swirl. Stipple is the up and down thing. So that will get paint into skinnier places. That will get paint stronger. I'm gonna move this up just a little bit. Yep. And make sure I'm lined up. Probably the most important part of this is make sure you're lined up straight. All right. And so that's how you get those bands down the sides. And you make a stripe. Cool, huh? I love this technique. You could take, your chevron, you could put it all over your D, you could take your hearts. If you were doing this for like a little girl's room, you could do so many stars. You could decorate with any little pattern that you have. Okay, let's do that chevron one down here on the paw. And then I'll show you how to do a liner, and then I'll show you how to do the dots. And I think you're gonna love that. All right, let's get another brush. When you have multicolor projects like this, it is really easy to eat up the brushes. So make sure if you are in love with these brushes that you have enough on hand. Okay, so get out some brown. And we are going to put just one chevron. So now, let's see how much masking I'm gonna need to do. We want just one line through the middle. I'm gonna just tape that puppy down. And then we can use our MultiMasker. I'm gonna probably need 2. And, hey, no paint. And that's how you get your pattern on there. And then you just move your MultiMasker. Doop, doop, doop. These are game changers. They are fabulous. Okay, so that's how we get our chevrons on there, and we can go up here and do this one. So I can show you how to do those dots. All right, let's take a look. So, see what we've done. I didn't get it all the way on, but I'm just showing you the example. So that's how you put a pattern on the middle. And then let's take this away and do some fun things. Okay, when you are using a round brush, this is probably worth the price of admission for anybody. A lot of artists struggle with round brushes. There's some basic tips to them that you can do. Number one, you need a round brush that has a nice point. If you don't have a good point on your round brush, then you are going to struggle with getting a good round, a good thin line. So the next thing you're gonna do when the brush is new, it's gonna have sizing in it. So you just flick it in the water and then you dry it off on your paper towel or in your hand. Okay, so now I'm rinsed out. I don't have any sizing on there. You can use a round brush if you want to fill in your bridging. If you don't like the look of bridging, some people really don't like that. What I see with round brush users, or fine artist brush using a lot of times, is people think that it's like a pencil. Okay, so what I say is you have to treat your round brush as like it's a mast on a ship. So it got to be straight up or it's not going to work right. And I'll show you how that looks. Okay, so I'm going to thin black. Get out some black. Excuse me. I hope you're having fun. Okay, so we're going to go here and we're going to thin it. So I just pick up water, and it can be dirty water. If you're going to thin white paint and you use dirty water, it might make your paint like a little gungy. So you don't want to do that. Okay, so now I mix it, and it's going to be like thick cream, not like pudding cream, but like just like milkish, but heavier than water, if that makes sense. I load it all the way up to the ferrule. So I am loading all the way to this silver part. And let me pull out one of these. And I'll show you a couple things people do. Maybe we can get some close-ups of this. Common problems that people have. So I'm going to use the back side so it's got papery texture. Okay, so if my brush is loaded all the way to the top and I keep my handle up, okay, I can make swirly lines. It kind of feeds the tip like a soda straw. So I can get a lot of lines out of one load of paint, okay? Now watch what happens when I reload. Same load, but I'm going to lay my brush down a little bit like I'm writing with my pencil, okay? So I'm gonna go like this, and I immediately run out of paint, okay? So it changes everything. So you've gotta keep your handles up so that you don't end up with that look. Okay, so that's our trick to doing that. You can also, one last little tip. You can also flatten the brush with regular paint, and now your round brush will kind of be a flat brush. So that's kind of a neat thing. You can get a lot of mileage out of a round brush with a good tip. Okay, so I'm gonna show you how we do this little detail on the E. So we're just gonna go, you could use a stencil or you could use a round brush. So I'm gonna be handles up, and then we're just going to, you gotta anchor your hand. If you try to line like this, you're gonna wander everywhere. Sometimes you can anchor your hand on your hand. Sometimes you anchor your hand on your piece. Sometimes you need something else to get you over an obstacle or something like that, so you can bring in another board or something like that to get an anchor. So tuck my brush dry. And so now we can go here and just do, I'm gonna use thicker paint because I want it darker. So you just go here, 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 and you just lead with the tip. Notice I'm not pushing hard on that tip. That's how you can get beautiful details using a round brush. Okay, now let's make some dots, and we're almost done. Okay, so we are going to take the magic back end of your paintbrush. This is a multi-use paintbrush. So we're gonna take the back end of the paintbrush, and this is really interesting. Dots are not possible to make well if you don't have fresh paint. If you have paint that's been sitting out for like 20, 30 minutes, you'll get little bumps in the paint. It won't come off clean. It won't come off fluidly. So if you ever have had problems with dots, get out some fresh paint and your problems will go away. Okay, so here we go. We're going to, let's dot this E. We're gonna go into our black, and I just make sure that I've got a puddle there. If I don't have a puddle, I'll put out a little bit more paint. And actually I think I will do that, just so that I don't have to play around in it. So put our fresh paint, and then we'll go into this. And then this is what we call a descending dot. So it starts one size, and then it gets smaller and smaller and smaller. And the way you do descending dots is you dot, then you dot, then you dot, and it's gonna get smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. Isn't that magic? You'll always wipe your brush off, or your handle off. It's a brush right now, isn't it? Then you pick up fresh paint. If you don't wipe your brush off, then your dots are gonna get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger because the paint's collecting on the end of the brush. Now, I want descending dots going down, so I am going to dot twice over here so that it starts descending right away. And maybe one more. Okay, and then we do some on the little E handles. I'm not sure what those things are really called, but doop, doop, doop. Always wipe it off. we go. I hope that you have loved this tutorial. Please check out our YouTube channel. We have hundreds of videos for you to watch, and we are excited to share about stenciling, DIY. We've got great backgrounds, and we'll see you on the next video.